afternoon. We'll call the meeting back to order. We are going to continue on 3.6. Deputy Reeve Clausen, you indicated you had... is Councillor Custer, are you on the line?
I'm here.
Yeah, perfect. Deputy Reeve Clausen, you said you had a question.
Yeah, following up with a conversation before lunchtime, there were several things that were said here. I'm just kind of trying to flesh them out. So you said you're shovel ready, and then you said we're at the dreaming stage. We've got architectural drawings. I get all kinds of public asking me, when's it going to be built? So I just don't know what to think of all that. You know, we've mentioned before managed expectations and things, so there's kind of mixed messages going out there as to what stage we're at and everything. So and the one thing that I always kind of going back to, the needs assessment that you've referenced several times, is pushing 4 years old now. We've gone through a pandemic. Is the board ever considered redoing the needs assessment when you admitted yourself that we went from when this was originally brought forward that there was people waiting for 6 to 8 months to get in, or a year, and now there's vacancy? That's all I have.
Okay. I'll start with the last one, needs assessment. It has really not much to do with the vacancy rate. Needs assessment is the need for the lodge. How many people are living in the area? How many people are in what age groups? What's the growth rate in the different age groups? That's the needs assessment. And then when they get the numbers, he applied a standard 20%, I believe it was. I forget now exactly what he used. And that's how many are going to need supportive living. That's how a needs assessment is done. They look at the wait lines. Yeah, that's part of our business plan. But that's what a needs assessment is how many people are living here, how many people, life expectancies. Yeah, that's the need assessment. Okay, so the lodge has never said we're building in September. I don't know where these stories are coming from, but they're out there. And I hear them all the time, and all I can say is we are waiting for an approval, the process. When we got the schematic plan done, we were under the impression that maybe they would build it as in our business case, or at the very least give us 80%, and we would have to come up with the 20. And we're almost at the 20 when you consider the value of the land and the county's contribution and the old lodge. And we're a little bit short, but really, I'm sure we could have worked out that detail. But nothing's coming forward from the government. As I said, Bill 82, I believe it is, everything's changed. Everything's changed again. This is the third time. Bill 78. This is the third time we've undergone a change. So now we have to regroup and resubmit. And yeah. So I phoned CAO, the lodge, and I believe you got our business case. There's 7 folders, it looks like there. That's what we submit to the government every year. They ask us, and we submit. And it's there. Have approval. Bruise at your own convenience. I don't know, was there any other questions, Scott?
No, I'll look through all this for now.
I just have a comment, Glenn. I don't know if the board has looked at this, but maybe from the board you could have some community information come out after meetings, or somehow get them involved that way so you're not having so many questions singly.
I talked to Derek about this,
Yeah.
and he thinks it's a little early yet. We're just going to get more anticipation building. He thinks when plans, after a month or two, maybe, I don't know. I'm not the expert here. We're hiring who Alberta Seniors prefers us to have. Really, the ball's in his court, but he thought it was a little premature, and he didn't think it would do that much, because the rumor mill's a rumor mill. Believe me, I wanted to do it, but on his advice, no.
So I would agree with Councillor Bigger, and only from the perspective of, and it wouldn't necessarily need to be even a future direction communication, but just an update on where things currently are, that there isn't any funding approval, sort of just outlining the work that's been done to date. I think where I get the questions is arising from some of the engagement sessions, which were excellent. I think it's great to do that engagement with stakeholders, with the community, with our seniors. And I'm, like I said, I don't know how many people, but I am getting not a ton of questions, but a fair number of questions about where things are at, what's the timeline, when will things be finished, like, even questions about, like, do the seniors have to, like, just continuity of, their home and things like that. I do reassure that, like, they're staying in their homes, there won't be, disruption, those types of things, and direct them to the board. But as an elected official of a municipality that's part of the housing board, I think it is really important that we be clear on where we're at, and that our ratepayers and our community be clear on where we're at. Councillor Bigger, is that kind of what you were getting at, more just like an update of the current state?
Yeah.
Even though there's uncertainty around.
If you're getting questions, Glenn's getting questions, maybe the board can address them through public announcements, however they decide how to do that.
Just kind of an update of where we're at right now.
Yeah, just an update.
I'll bring it up to the board again at our next board meeting and see what the board's wishes are.
That would be wonderful.
That's all I can
Deputy
do.
Reeve Clausen.
Sorry, just one more thing. Glenn, you made a statement that seniors can't always stay at home. And I have to disagree with you. I have several members of my family that have decided to stay at home and actually die at home. And I respect them 100% for our family's always supported that. And I know my parents are in that boat too. I will fully expect that they will not go to a lodge. So there is family members and a lot of seniors that choose to stay at home till they perish. So
I realize that, Scott, and I think that's why the advisor, Gary Gordon, I think that's why he used the 20% number. There are people that won't live long enough. There are people that have an urgent medical condition they can't overcome, COVID, whatever. There are lots of things. So around maybe 20% of people in a certain age group, you can expect them to go to the lodge. And some of them are only there for a couple, 3 months. Some don't even get qualified to go to the lodge. They have to go to higher level of care. We can't take everybody. And not everybody's the same. And there are always people out there with needs. I don't know who they are or who they're going to be, but you have to be ready.
Any other questions for Councillor Kester? There's no other questions. There is a motion on the floor to accept the report.
Amber?
Yes.
Amber, while I'm doing my report, maybe I'll just do the Wedemza, then my reporting's all done and it's all in the same spot on the website. Does that make sense?
Yeah, certainly.
Or do you want me to wait? Okay, there was a letter from, I think, Darren Sambeck in our package for information on sent to Wheatland County, I think, because of your advocacy on the regional partnership on hours of work. yes, they're done the hours of work, and with DEMSA, it's kind of complicated. So I won't read the whole. I won't even read any of the report. I'll just paraphrase it. There are certain areas and certain associations and they categorize them in two different processes. So suffice it to say, Wheatland County or Wademsa is not in the worst shape for hours of work, and is definitely not the best. We live in the number 1 corridor, which is one of their worst corridors. I think it was number 4 in the province, and I believe we were 7 or something. Anyway, that being said, it was recognized that our hours of work are uncontrollable. So our CAO was informed that there'd be some additional funding, and they're going to pay for one BLS car to have the 12-hour shifting. So right now that BLS car has one crew on for 96 hours. That shift is gone, and it'll be replaced with 2 12-hour shifts. Our other BLS car has right now the Core Flex 96-hour shift on it, 1 crew. That shift is gone also, and it'll be replaced with a 42-hour work week from Monday to Friday. The hours aren't exactly determined yet. We'd like to change them a little bit, so I don't know what the exact hours will be, but it'll be Monday to Friday and a 42-hour work week. So that'll be staffed with like 1 crew for the week. So that gives us 2 ambulances with 12-hour shifting, 24/7, and 1 ambulance with a 5-day work week for 42 hours, 52 weeks of the year. I don't know how much that's costing, but we've got notification that that's what is going down. And so we're quite happy about that, really. So yeah, maybe in the future, next year, when they have some more money after March, maybe that 3rd ambulance might get the 2 12-hour shifts. I don't know. But it's going to be quite a boost. The morale at the hall should no more 96-hour shifts. It should make staff a lot happier, and it should make it easier to retain staff and hire more. So yeah, good news, and thanks to everyone that's participated on the advocacy. It's great that it took a long time, but we got it. And I don't know when the shifting will start either. I haven't heard that yet either. So we'll have to get the money, then we'll have to hire, and then hopefully it doesn't take forever. And having said that, that's it for my report.
Thank you, Councillor Kester. So those comments, just for everybody, were in reference to the correspondence starting on page 168 from the Chief Paramedic, Darren Sandbeck, Senior Provincial Director and Chief Paramedic. Any questions regarding that for Councillor Kester out of the correspondence package? Anybody opposed to accepting Councillor Kester's report for information? Motion is carried. We'll move to 3.7, Division 7 Councillor report.
Okay, so you have my report in front of you. We'll, if it's okay with everyone, we'll review the ASB minutes of both meetings after and then adopt them separately. Okay. So we had an ASB meeting on the 12th. We'll talk about that later. I had several meetings this month with the Drumheller District Solid Waste Management Association was to review a candidate. We were rather disappointed with the level of interest in the position. We ended up having 4 applicants, and by the time we could get to the interview stage, 2 of those had backed out. I don't know if they got jobs with other entities in between time. There was no explanation, but we basically had 2 candidates to choose from. We went over it. Yeah. One had all the paper credentials, and might have been a fairly good fit. The other one was missing a few credentials, but was obvious that that person's interpersonal skills and ability to work with others and that kind of stuff were far superior to that candidate. So we decided to go with the slightly less qualified one because it's a 6-month probationary, and with the assumption that that candidate meets the qualifications within the next 6 months. I think we've made the right decision, but of course time will tell. But that's one thing that's off our plate. There's a lot of things that we're going to review. I've gotten some stuff from CEO Henderson about how the association is structured, and I think we're going to have to. It's pretty loosey-goosey, and it needs to be, it just needs. I don't say even tightened up, but it needs to be more formalized so that there's clear direction as to where we're going and who does what and that kind of stuff. But we'll get that figured out. I will talk a little bit about the ASB resolution special meeting. We called that on January 12th. Russ and Brad and Matt and I think that was. Oh, and Amber was on the Friday before. We spent a good chunk of the afternoon trying to figure this out, where it would go. We did a detailed review of this brief that you guys actually probably haven't seen, but that was all that was in the RFD that administration put up for the special meeting, which was done very well. I think it was pretty clear at that meeting that that's what had to be done, and I think we'll talk about that further today, so I'm just going to let that one go. Because there'll be lots of time to talk about that. So that was the gist of the special meeting. And I just got to go back. And then we went to the ASB conference. There was some interesting speakers, some maybe not so interesting speakers, maybe a little off topic. and I'm not going to embarrass any of them because it's a public meeting. But certainly some really good speakers, some good resolutions. One of them that probably pertains to us and just about every other county is the pesticide container collection program. We have to do something about that and find an effective solution, which once you get north of Red Deer, people don't care so much about this, but for the south people, what are we going to do about gophers now that we can't use strychnine? Was another fairly effective one. And then I think the one, I'm not going to go through all of them. The one that was probably the most contentious was an emergent resolution brought forward by the municipality of Crowsnest Pass, which is an interesting anomaly, and I'm happy to chat with any of you offline about this, but it was with regard to wild boars, and they had put forth an emergent resolution that says that they wanted to ban recreational hunting of wild boars because it's ruining the provincial trapping pilot program and all this stuff. Anyway, I asked a few questions and got some interesting answers. And it was pretty clear in the room, though, that the actual people that are involved in agriculture in the areas that actually have this problem were completely opposed to it. So that resolution was defeated rather soundly. I'm just going to look at the bar graph. I'm going to say probably 85% in defeat. What did you say, Shannon?
I thought it was more like 60%, but
Was it only
yeah,
that much?
Yeah, it was.
I'm just
defeated,
pulling the
but
bar graph out of my memory, and it looked like this one was this big and this one was this big.
I don't think so, but
I could look at it.
Yeah.
Anyway, it was rather soundly defeated. And that's the highlights out of that one. If there's any questions, certainly come and see myself or Amber or Shannon after we were all there. Good conference. I almost would say the best part of the conference was the MC, Danny Hooper. But anybody that knows him, he was exactly who he always is at the conference. And let's see, what else do we have to chat about? Well, that's about it. So maybe before we move my report, we'll talk about the minutes and we'll approve both of those. Is that okay, Amber? Yeah, okay. Or do you want the report? Okay. All right, so if there's no more questions to my report, I will move that it be approved as presented.
Just a quick question. So with Drumheller Solid Waste, you're the chair now, correct?
That's correct.
Congratulations.
I don't know if I'd word it that way, but I would almost go, I heard that train coming. But no, it'll be good, and I'm okay with it. I'll share a little anecdote. After I chaired the first meeting, I had a couple of people come up and went, oh, that's the most order we've had here in a long time. So I think it'll be good.
Any questions for Councillor Lowerson? Just to build on around the wild boars, so some of the considerations that were raised with, this is just for interest for those who weren't there. There was a presentation as well just about the wild boar issue. I think they caused about $2.5 billion of damage.
That was not in Alberta, though.
In the U.S.?
That's right.
Yeah, no, I was. In the United States, where they've become quite an issue. They had a video of a field that just had like one last swath that they were clearing, and you see like a wild boar run out, and then you see, I don't know how many, 50?
30 or 50, it was
Like a
creepy,
ton.
crazy.
And so part of the rationale for looking at eliminating recreational hunting is just the ineffectiveness of it. And there was some position from, I'm trying to think, she was with Invasive Species of Alberta, and they are doing the Squeal on Pigs engagement campaign. They've borrowed it from 2 American states who have shared it with Alberta. And what she shared is that they have found that it tends to basically make the wild boars that are not hunted smarter, like they almost evolve to avoid humans better, disperse, it spreads them when they're hunted, and it can actually exacerbate the issue. So it's a difficult question. And it can also turn them more nocturnal. So of course then, I don't think most animals can be hunted at night, but
Oh, very easy.
I'm not sure legally. I don't know.
You didn't qualify legally.
I did not qualify legally. Thought it was implied. But in terms of, those were some of the challenges with recreational hunting. However, on the flip side, obviously like a containment program that would rely on catching would also rely on provincial funding. At this point, it's a pilot project that they've been doing, I think, on 9 or 10 sites. And so unless, and I imagine that conversation would happen through the provincial ASB board on if there was going to be either a commitment from the province to continue or actually increase that containment program that they're working on. That's kind of based on the premise that they would bait the wild boars into one area and then contain an entire, and I forget what a group of wild boars is called. A sounder, thank you. Trap an entire sounder at once rather than kind of picking off individual boars and perhaps evolving the population and escalating the problem in the province. So it was interesting. It was very interesting to consider. What is remarkable to me is the potential for damage to agriculture, to the crops, and it does look like it's something that we want to attend to. I believe this all stemmed from, there's an application for a recreation, I'm not sure, wild boar or hybrid boar hunting application.
There's a potential new bounty coming through, and that's what they were mostly opposed to. And even the producers that I spoke to, particularly in the affected areas, they aren't necessarily opposed to the concept, but what they're saying is it's a pilot project now. Even in our area, we've asked for traps, and they've said we don't have enough traps to supply. Don't take away our only method, because a lot of the farmers said, I don't have time to sit out there all day and wait for these things. I need my urban neighbors to come out, much like a lot of farmers don't have time to sit around all day and hunt gophers, right? They need this for now. It's not so much that they were opposed to it. They just said this needs to be a better program before we make that leap of something we might not be able to pull back, right?
Absolutely, for sure.
And now you've reminded me of one other thing about the ASB conference that's new. So on day one of the conference, I spoke to Sebastian I'm not even going to try and say his last name, but it starts with a D. Super guy. He's the provincial ASB chair. And I had asked him just in talk, well, how this got started is before I had a chance to even sit down in a chair, Amber had introduced me to a guy named Bob Chernick from Grand Prairie, who was a new ASB chair and wanted to meet some other ASB chairs. So I as Amber can attest to, he and I barely got along. And after a short conversation, I had an idea that perhaps it might be good for all of the ASB chairs to meet, much in the same fashion that the Reeves meet at the RMA. So I talked to Sebastian and I said, can we make this happen? And he goes, let me get back to you because I'm not sure we're actually allowed to do that. So it took a couple of days, but we finally got it on the last day, noon. I think it was announced that we were going to meet, and one of the other municipalities had asked if the vice chairs could come, and we said absolutely. So we had a meeting at the end of the conference. We had a networking session with the chairs and the vice chairs of the ASB. It was probably, for at least for me, one of the best parts of the conference, because we had them all kind of sitting in a semicircle around the stage, and Sebastian stood up on the stage as kind of the moderator, and I stood down below and just got people to talk about. And what we had said is, think about it for a couple of minutes. What's the major issue in your county? And as I had said to them, I said, I'll bet you'll find that we have a lot more in common than you think we do. So we started around on the table, and they were some, I wouldn't say reticent, but kind of timid comments, like nobody really knew what to do. And as we started to go around the room, and by the time we got to Shannon, because I wanted her to speak for us, and she spoke well, and then people started to get a little better, and then by the time we got halfway around the room, people were really getting into this. By the time we got around to the other side of the room, we had people that had spoken before going, hey, wait a minute, I got something to bring up, and I got something to bring up. And so what we did find is there's a ton of issues that are common. The one that we're facing right now that we're going to talk about again this afternoon is common, and with a lot more organizations than even I thought. Some of the other ones are very common. The destruction of woodlands and stuff in the north is a very common issue for a bunch of counties. So anyway, they all thought it was a really good thing, and when I asked them if they thought we should do this again, I don't know that anyone didn't put their hand up. I didn't look all that close, but certainly most of them were up. And the measure of success that I saw later, as Sebastian and I were kind of debriefing about how it went, was watching a bunch of the people from the other counties talking to each other and exchanging business cards and stuff. So that tells me that they found some value in it. So now we're going to make it a part of the annual ASB conference.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Any questions?
I got a couple comments.
Yes, Glenn?
Okay, if you're going to do that next year, maybe I would strongly have you consider maybe the agricultural fieldmen should join in too. I think there's value there for continuity for what we're currently into. Any questions, they don't have to be however you include them, but I think there would be real merit to including them in on the deal too.
That's an interesting point, Glenn, and how we did it at our table, and we can probably formalize some of that ahead of time. Well, it was maybe somewhat informal. It was me sending a text to Russ saying, give me the top 2 things that we can bring to this meeting, and it worked quite well. But that's a good point.
Yeah.
I think we should probably talk about that at our ASB, and then I can communicate that information to Sebastian, and he can disseminate it to the others.
Yeah, okay. And I was curious about sounder traps, so I Googled them. And I don't know, they got a lot of work to do. It must have come up from the States. Looked like about a pile of corn in the middle of this trap. And of course, a whole bunch of pigs got in there. And it didn't take long, and there's only one pig left, and he's got the rest chased away. You could tell who the boss was. So, yeah, it's kind of like watching, I don't know, the mouse traps you see, build a better mouse trap. Yeah, I thought it was interesting. They're smart animals, but they also got society they follow too. Yeah. Google it if you get bored.
Yeah, no, I'm fairly familiar with that. And I think that's a good point, Glenn, and I think that's something we maybe talk about at the ASB, actually.
Any other questions or comments? Motion to accept your report as information?
I'll move. I think I already did that, but I'll move it
Did
again.
you? Okay.
I'll move that we accept my report as presented.
Any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
Okay, shall we go
Just
to
a
the-
note,
Oh, sorry.
if we can just be careful when we're sharing our reports, just because we are in a public meeting, just to be cognizant that we're not sharing any sort of information that might fall under privacy for hirings or that type of thing. Really, it could apply to anything in our boards or committee meetings that we're reporting on. We just want to be very mindful of those processes and applicants and that type
Yeah,
of
and
thing.
that's why I tried to be as generic as I could.
Yes.
Yeah. Definitely no names.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, so can we go to the minutes now?
Absolutely.
So we had an Ag Services, whoops, that's a special meeting. Sorry, I gotta find the regular one. There we go. We had our Agricultural Service Board meeting on January 12th. The minutes are in your package. Are there any questions from that meeting?
I think we're good. Just a motion. I believe the process is that council approves the minutes
Yeah.
of the ASB. Yeah. So just a motion to approve.
So hearing no questions, I'll move that the Agriculture Service Board minutes from January 12th, 2022 be approved by council.
Perfect. Any questions or comments? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Go to 3.72.
Oh, just a minute. We've got one more to approve.
That is 3.72.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah, you
I'm not
betcha.
watching that part.
No, that's okay.
Okay,
The
so
special meeting minutes.
on January 24th, 2022, we held a special Agricultural Service Board meeting to discuss the resolution that we were going to put forth to the provincial conference. The minutes are in your package. I think we all know what the meeting was about. So if there's no questions,
Any questions?
okay, I'll move that the special Agriculture Service Board meeting minutes from January 24th, 2022 at 1 p.m. be approved by council as presented.
Any discussion? Is anyone opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.11, Chief Administrative Officer Report.
Yes, good afternoon, Council. Brian from Administration. On page 56 of your agenda package is my monthly report. Pretty short this month. I was off for 2 weeks of that. So Matt filled in for while I was gone. He did an excellent job, so I want to thank him for that. The resolution tracker is on page 59 of the agenda report. If there are any questions about it, please let me know. Thank you.
Any questions for CAO Henderson? If there's no questions, looking for two resolutions. One that, oh, sorry, clicked on the wrong one.
Council accept January 22nd Chief Administration Officer report as information. And further, that council accept the February 1st, 2022 council resolution tracker as information.
Perfect. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.12, Audited Services Plan.
Yes, Council. Brian again from Administration. So this is an audit services plan that's provided by our auditors. So our financial statement auditors are MNP. They're a big firm, national-wide, potentially North America. I'm not quite sure. So they do our financial statement audit for us, and this is the third year that they have completed this audit for us. We are in a contract with them. This is the third year of 3, and we have an option to sign on for 2 additional years. Things have been going well with them. There's been no conflicts, and they do a good job, so no questions there. So on page 69 of the agenda report is kind of just the bones of the actual audit that occurs at the county. So what will happen is that the auditors come in, they will kind of take a look at everything. There's something called materiality. So, and the auditors will explain this more in detail when they show up to do the audited statement presentation, which is on April 5th. So what they do is they select a a materiality range. So what they do is they ensure that our statement is within a certain amount of error. And our materiality, as stated in the audit plan, is 1.1 million, so quite a big number. However, just in general, that's the acceptable practice that they can select that kind of materiality from. So everything is kind of in detail what they kind of go through in here. They do lots of substantive testing, which means that they'll come in and test balances of certain accounts. So the responsibility of the management is to ensure that we prepare these statements and we prepare them and ensure that they're materially correct. And then everything else is kind of in here as well. It's they go through this kind of every year. This is presented every year as well. There's nothing really that's abnormal. It's kind of a regular thing. The risk areas, they kind of always talk about those. If there are any questions, please let me know. And if not, we will see the auditors on, I think it's right in their plan actually. February 15th is when they come out to the county to review our working papers that we've completed for them to review. And then they will discuss the draft financial plans with us on March 23rd, which is actually great timing for the strategic planning as well. Just kind of to let us know where we sit. There are no red flags with us at all. We're right on line with the budget, so we'll bring this information as soon as we can to council. And then on April 5th is kind of the last day where the council will should pass a resolution saying that they authorize the financial statements to be signed, and then we end up submitting them to the province. All the fees are in here. All the fees are budgeted as well in our operating budget. If there are any questions, please let me know. Thank you.
Any questions regarding the audited services plan?
I just have a quick question. So at the end of 2 years, would we be expected to go through an RFP for a new auditor or a new contract?
So we could exercise the option in the contract. So we do have an option to do 2 more years with them. And then at that point, we would go back out to RFP. Okay. And then even through that RFP process, we could stick with them as well, again, just depending on the bids that do come in. Yeah. But overall, administration is happy with the service that we do get from them.
It's nice to have somebody familiar that you enjoy, that you work well with or whatever.
Yeah, and actually, Mr. Pilling and Mr. LaRock, staff have familiarity with them. They've worked with them quite a bit, and yeah, I haven't worked with the other 2 people. I think there's a new audit partner, which makes sense too, because typically audit partners will kind of cycle onto these statements every once in a while, just to ensure that nothing is getting missed or a fresh set of eyes on them. I think there's a practice in accounting that they have to actually do that. I forget under what thing, but yeah. And it's good because, staff know them really well, and some better than others. And yeah, they kind of chat with all staff to ensure everyone's on the same page.
Any other questions regarding the plan?
I'll make the motion that council accepts the December 31st, 2021 financial audited service plan as information.
Any questions or discussion? Any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. The second resolution.
I'll move that council authorizes the Reeve to sign the December 31st, 2021 financial audit services plan document.
Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Move to 4.21, Corporate and Financial Services Report.
Good afternoon, Reeve Link and Council. It's Tracy, and I'm here to present some highlights from the January 2022 tasks in corporate and financial services. Migration to our servers to the cloud are in the final planning stages for rollout in the coming weeks. Updating of internal Wi-Fi passwords has been initiated to maintain higher levels of security. Corporate cell phone plans are under review and being updated. A service request system has been developed through Laserfish and under testing for internal tracking of tickets and work requests. ASB meeting minutes have been uploaded to Laserfish repository. Approximately 400 scanned images have been reviewed. GIS has completed the 2022 grader map as well as the 2021 gravel haul and 2021 road reclamation maps in coordination with the Public Works Department. and they are currently working on creating a 2022 utility map of the hamlets around the county, showing the existing water and sewer lines within each hamlet. And as the Reeve mentioned, we've received confirmation that we have been approved for FCM's asset management grant in the amount of $50,000. And so we are working on bridge assets that have that's commenced, and creating graphics, tables, and draft methodology. And those would include inventory, materials, useful lives, asset age, and estimated replacement year. And that ends my report to council. Are there any questions?
Any questions regarding the report? A motion to accept for information?
I'll move the report as information. I just got one question on this asset management. How are the villages in that able to undertake this? I would assume this is a municipality for all municipalities. Like, this seems to be like stretching our capabilities. Like, how do the villages manage?
I believe, and I would need to double check, that there was an opportunity for smaller municipalities to join as a group with the province, and the province taught them asset management, and then they were to work together. I don't recall what the group was called, but I could certainly look into that and send council an email.
I believe it was done through like the Palliser asset management or Palliser
Economic development.
Yeah,
partnership.
so I'm guessing there was some sort of like they just all collaborated and got a grant together. I did see their name, the Palliser name, on the actual awarding of the grant. So I could be mistaken too, but that's my general idea.
Oh, thank you, and that's good enough. It's just that it is such a it's a big task that needs to be undertaken, and it costs money. So, okay, thank you.
I know too, and I believe it was the case with Hazar when they underwent their viability review. I know other villages have had ACP grants to do, they don't call it an asset management plan, but it's basically a review of infrastructure. It's essentially sort of a certain level of an asset management analysis. And I believe Hazar had that during their viability review. Other villages have had that as well. But it's definitely a challenge because it is like takes a huge amount of capacity to undertake. So it's a good question. Any other questions regarding the corporate and financial services report? Councillor Aykroyd has moved to accept as information. Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.22, credit request for July to December CVIP.
Good morning again, or good afternoon again. This is more of a housekeeping item, but for new councillors, I'd like to explain. So the county performs, can you hear me?
You betcha, thank you.
Oh, thank you. Performs commercial vehicle inspections program for Strathmore Handybus, Down Fire Association, and Hazar Fire Association. And every 6 months, we bring an RFD to council to approve the amount as in kind. So we're just looking for council to write off the CVIP invoices for July to December 2021 in the amount of $5,250 for the Strathmore Handybus, and provide these services as in kind. Any questions?
I actually have one question, and I've asked this before to the handy bus. So a bus defined by Alberta Transportation for CVIP inspection is anything more than 10 people. So I'm just wondering if we have any capability within here, or maybe I'll talk to the government to find out. Do they even require a CVIP for the vans? Because they're not buses anymore, they're vans that are running, and they're more like a taxi. So I'm not sure if we have the capability of finding out, but I'm pretty sure taxis don't have to be commercially inspected. I'm just wondering if this is who would find out.
Councillor Laprice, are you on the handy bus board?
Nobody is right now.
No, I'm not. I believe at our organization meeting, we took Handybus off our list of committees.
can certainly research that question and get back to council if you'd like.
Whatever's easiest, I can look into it too. It's not a big deal. Just, I've asked the question of a handy bus before, and there's kind of a, yeah.
Okay.
Don't want to do any work we don't
It's
have.
maybe
Yeah.
better if administration does, I don't
Okay,
know.
sure.
Like if we're doing the CVIP.
I think we have a transportation and fleet coordinator now, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, that person should be, yeah. Yeah, if you can, that'd be great. No rush.
I'm just thinking, or is it more appropriate just to ask the handy bus themselves, like if they've looked in, I just don't want to duplicate if they've already looked into that. Do you know what I mean?
And the reason I'm asking, I think the
don't
rules
have a
changed
board
about
member.
6-7 years ago with commercial vehicles. So I don't know if they're necessarily aware of that, or maybe I'm wrong, so.
What about a motion just to reach out to the handy bus and inquire if they've looked into that? And if we have capacity, if we could offer to look into it if they haven't, I don't know, would there be an appetite from council for that? That way, if they've already done it, we're not duplicating any work. And if they're not and we can assist and we have capacity to do that, we could. Would seem like a red tape reduction thing, like, because they are using mainly minivans, right? If I understand correctly. You want to do a motion as such?
We'll make a motion to have staff reach out to the handy bus and see if they've researched if CVIPs are still needed for the vans. Because they did have a bus before, but now they just operate vans.
And then do you want to include to offer to inquire if they haven't, if they would like us to?
Yes.
Okay. In administration, we have capacity. That wouldn't overextend.
No,
Our
we
team.
would be okay.
Okay. Is everybody clear on the motion? Is anybody opposed? Motion is carried. Then we have a recommendation regarding the RFD, page 94.
So are we saying regardless of that, we still want to make this in kind? Yes, okay.
This, I think, is for what's already being done, so the inquiry would be on a go
Past year
forward.
kind of thing, yeah. I'll make a motion, it's not on my page right now, that we approve, there we go. That council direct administration to write off the commercial vehicle inspection program invoices for July to December 2021 in the amount of $5,250 for the Strathmore handy bus and provide these services as in kind.
Any questions or discussion? Any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.31, Community and Development Services Report.
Good afternoon, Council. Matt from Administration presenting on page 89 of your agenda package, the Community and Development Services January 2022 report. In the report, you'll note some monthly highlights, but in particular, I just wanted to highlight a couple of successes from 2021 in this report, particularly for our new council members as well, because quite a bulk of what we had achieved was done in 2021 with respect to what you've heard in the Q4 of 2021. So just to note, under community services, so Dave's group, which we typically call Parks and Recreation, we did quite a few long-range plans. So we completed in-house an open space recreation culture master plan document. We also completed a landscaping and screening guidelines document. So 2 of those major milestones were done in-house, and we were able to get that approved through council as well. Many of the policies policy work we have done has been completely amended, so we have fresh new policies within Parks and Recreation. We've done quite a bit of research with respect to cost sharing and funding agreements, and we completed a Wheatland County and Town of Strathmore Recreation Cost Sharing Agreement. We also, in conjunction with some new developments, have some community benefits programs that we're getting situated and sorted. So in particular, we have the East Strathmore Solar Community Benefit Fund, which is half fee assistance and education, and the other half is open for applications to anywhere in the county. This process is going to be established and brought back to council. So that's also part of the work that we do within the development realm, as we look to seek if there's community benefit funds that the county can administer. Typically it's done for public realm and community benefits, so Dave will lead that charge and get that all situated and sorted. So we've got a few of those on the go, which we're quite pleased and proud with. And you'll note a couple of 2022 project goals on the go for Parks and Recreation. With respect to economic development on page 90, a couple of those updates, council has alluded to obviously the next level project. We're getting our consultant mobilized there, so that's quite exciting work in terms of our gateway signage. So work continues on that. We're constantly working with our investment attraction strategy, which we got completed and approved by council in 2021. And obviously speaking with developers, that's on the go and ongoing. And we continue to update our digital information as well on our website. So economic development, quite a few milestones that were hit there. Fire services, so Chief Borgon's group here, we have quite a few achievements that you'll see on page 92. We had approval of the fire master plan, so that's a major milestone in 2021. That's our roadmap for fire services, quite exciting. Obviously, I want to make note of the Carsland Fire Hall. You'll note it's about 8,000 square feet, and we're $44,000 remaining under budget, so about a 1.58% delta there, so quite exciting work. That's a huge milestone that we achieved as well, and you'll note pictures there. Another main focus and achievement for the fire services was the training program, so executing a successful training year, a lot of engagement on the fire services side of things. Our Fire Prevention Week was quite exciting in the month of October, and of course on the emergency management side of things, they have been quite busy in terms of the COVID-19 adaptation and announcement procedures and keeping updated with provincial announcements. You'll note some data, obviously, that's included there. And moving forward, actually, I want to make note to council on page 95. We had a few discussions in Q4 with respect to mutual aid agreements. So Chief Borgon put together, the status of our mutual aid agreements. You'll note a table there. We do have many. And of course, one of the actions is to get kind of talking with our neighbors and start those discussions with respect to any updates to mutual aid agreements that may arise. We're looking at putting together a report to council, maybe more fulsomely to discuss those. So we're looking at that as a 2022 project. So I just wanted to make note of that as well. With respect to planning and development, you'll note it was a busy year for our staff. We did have quite a few planning applications, you'll note in the 2021 data there, and quite a few safety codes permits and development permits as well, which is a good sign. So I think part and parcel, that was with respect to obviously people wanting to do work on their own homes. We had some new developments come in, but also the education piece. So one of our efforts, and we had talked about this, was kind of educating on what are permits and why do we do them. So I attribute a bit of that to that. So hopefully that'll continue moving forward as well. And then just to go to protective services on page 98 of the report, I just want to make note as well, protective services have updated their policies, and obviously we're going through some bylaw reviews. One noted today with respect to the noise bylaw, so we're doing a lot of that review work as well. So just wanted to kind of highlight some of those achievements for 2021. The additional data is included in your agenda package. Thank you.
Fantastic. Any questions for Community and Development Services? Councillor Gregor?
Matthew, what is, I think it's above Speargrass.
What page?
There's page 110, all the development pictures. There's quite a big action happening there.
Oh,
Can you
yeah.
tell me what's going on? Or what that would be concerning?
That's the exact same question.
110?
No, it's page 102 according to mine. Thank you.
Oh,
110 on the new agenda package. Yeah, there it is, that cluster.
I if it's something I should know about.
Good question.
The whole subdivision starting there.
Yeah. Well, so the highlight notes that there's a cluster of farm and accessory building, and that's just above. Sorry, rather, yeah. There might be smaller development permits that have occurred there. I can certainly look into that and get that information for you with respect to that cluster. There's also one right above that's quite interesting as well, but it's hard to kind of note
I think it might be the one above that I was curious about.
This one, it's kind of hard to distinguish which dot is which, but obviously once we upload, like once we get the permit, it automatically populates to the map. So there's something going on, and I can certainly get that information.
Okay. That'd be great.
Any other questions?
I guess I have a question about mutual aid agreement. So that's just if anything were to happen, like a disaster of some sort, that you would have an agreement with a neighboring community to help with.
That's correct. Any additional, basically in summation, that's correct.
Okay. Okay. Very good. Thanks.
It wouldn't really have to be necessarily a disaster, though. It could also be a fire that was, say, on the border between the town of Drumheller and the county of Wheatland, where it might be more expeditious to get Drumheller to respond first and then Dallam, for example, to come second. It's more of a let's help each other out. If Wheatland has to go into the town of Drumheller, which I don't mean the town itself, it's a huge area down in the valley, it just might make more sense.
That's correct.
Any other questions? Just to comment, I love the report. I liked the summary of the year's activities and also the goals going forward. One thing I did want to, and like I'm extremely grateful for everything. I think we've come a long ways in terms of economic development and the work that's happened on recreation and the plans and agreements that we have in place. I did want to specifically note something that I'm really grateful for is the transition with the training program for fire from that certification base to the competency based. I think we have to credit that to the continuity and being able to have volunteer firefighters in our municipality. I know how much we value our firefighters and the volunteer work that is done through them. And I think it's work like this in collaboration with our administration that is why we can maintain that. So I thought that was key. And the fact that we were able to do a fire master plan and have consensus around that, I think that speaks a lot to how far we've come in terms of our fire service, and that really benefits our communities. And so to administration and to our firefighters and the associations, thank you, because we would not have the level of fire service in this municipality that we have without that collaborative work and without the commitment from both our administrative team and our volunteers. So when I read that, I was just very, very grateful. So thank you. And to the work that obviously our entire team at Wheatland is doing. And it was just nice to see that summarized throughout the year. We got a lot done. So yeah, thank you. Any other questions or comments?
I'll just follow up with that too. That is what we heard when we met with a lot of the fire associations, yes. And the frontline people was, this was a problem and this is a solution, and I'm really happy that it's there. Thank you.
Motion to accept the report as information, please.
So moved.
Deputy Reeve Clausen has moved. Any further discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Move to 4.32, Safety Code Contract Services.
Good afternoon, Council. Matt from Administration. On page 114 of your agenda package is the Safety Codes contract services. We're just seeking an extension where we have the ability with our current contract to renew for up to 2 years upon written agreement of both parties. Staff, administration are quite pleased with the services we're getting, so we're just seeking a contract extension. You'll see what Park Enterprises does on the RFD, and again, staff are just seeking a 2-year extension. Thank you.
Any questions? Yes, Councillor Lowerson.
And this will be to administration. Park services, where do they come from? Like what town, city do they operate out of?
So they have multiple, they're provincial-wide, they're quite large, so I can't comment on exactly where their head office is or where they are, but they are within a length like we have. They're able to travel to sites quite expeditiously, so we don't have an issue in terms of location or travel or any of that.
Okay. And the reason I'll ask that is prior to becoming councillor, one of the questions I had from a resident, that they were doing something and they needed, now I'm going to assume these are like building, like electrical inspections and that kind of safety code stuff?
Correct, through the REEV, that's right, safety codes, building permits.
And they'd said that whoever was coming out of Lethbridge, and it was a logistical nightmare for that. So I don't know, is that, like, that could have been a number of years ago, so I don't know. Has there been any, I guess my question would be, has there been any complaints into administration?
So through the REEV, we have not heard, administration certainly, I have not heard any complaints of that nature. I'm quite confident in this 2-year extension. We have a very good relationship with Park. We have a very good system with Park. And in fact, actually one item I think I'd like to actually just highlight for council, I think, is we're going through that digitization program with Laserfiche, the in-house records management system, in which case we're actually modernizing the process of safety codes applications and working quite closely with Park. Now, that's not to say that if we went with someone else, we couldn't migrate that over, but it is because we are working cohesively with Park to get that situated and sorted. It is quite a sound model for safety code applications and building permit applications. Actually, one that I would not hesitate to apply for a safety codes award for once we get that situated and sorted.
Okay, thanks. And yeah, and what I learned with these complaints is sometimes, you know, it's big in their head, but it might have happened 6 or 7 years ago. So, okay, thanks for that.
Yeah, and we have been with Park since 2019. I had never really received significant complaints, but I have actually gotten compliments on the timeliness of Park from 2 developers, even in the last, I'd say, 6 months. Just that they were very prompt in coming out for the site inspections and things like that were very timely. So I don't normally hear a lot about that side of it, but people were very complimentary. So I did say I would pass that along. So it's a good time.
Yes, and just if I could add one point, the same, we haven't heard of any logistical or timeliness complaints. And I did just pull up this woman, Nicole, that we kind of deal with sometimes from Park, and their office is out of Lethbridge, so that is definitely true.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I'll move that council approves renewing the contract with Park Enterprises Limited for safety code services for a term of 2 years from March 1st, 2022 to February 28th, 2024.
Thank you, Councillor Bigger. Any questions or debate? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We'll move to 4.33, Village and Town Cost Sharing Methodology.
Good afternoon, Council. Dave from Administration. At the January 12th, 2022 Council meeting, the following motion arose from the in-camera session that Council direct Administration to draft a document outlining the methodology for the funding model agreements made between the Town of Strathmore and the villages of Zatar, Rocky Ford, and Standard. The report outlines the methodology first for the Town of Strathmore agreement, and the survey of similar municipalities provided an average cost contribution for those centers. The same methodology and similar comparisons were employed to determine the contribution amounts for the villages. The report provides transparency as a summary of the methodologies and information examined by council. The information outlined was instrumental in developing cost-sharing amounts for the villages and the town cost-sharing negotiations. Wheatland County residents utilized and valued the community facilities, and council desired to contribute a fair share to these communities. And the report just kind of outlines the methodology, and I can answer any questions on that.
Excellent, thank you. Any questions? If there's no questions, motion to accept the report as information.
I'll move that council accepts the report on village and town cost-sharing methodology for information.
Any questions or discussion? I want to thank you for compiling the report. I think it does a really good job of summarizing the process that administration and council went through to get to where we are now. There was substantive work and research that went into that, and I want to thank you for all of that. It gave me a strong rationale for what we've done that I can share with ratepayers, and I think given the information we have access to, sort of a fair way to do some cost sharing at this point. So thank you. And this will be valuable to share at Wheatland Regional Partnership or with the town or the villages, just to help explain sort of the deliberations that we went through and what we considered in coming to where we are. So thank you.
Sorry, just clarification. Are we sending this out to the partners? Villages and stuff? Or
It's
just
at the
having
will
to
of
take it out
council. We
themselves?
could share it. We could certainly share it with the villages. It's a public document. I had hoped that we would have something to take to Wheatland Regional Partnership just to explain how we've gotten to where we are now. But I think it might be good to proactively share it. And
Yeah, we could do that as administration.
I'd like to see it shared too, and then it's self-explanatory. So.
yeah, it's a good idea.
Unless anybody else doesn't want to, that's fine.
We have the motion to accept. We could do a second motion following just to share it with each of the villages. We could share it with the town as well, just so that it's gone to everybody that we have agreements with. It's a good idea. Any other questions? Is anyone opposed to accepting as information? Motion is carried.
I'd like to make the motion that the County Wheatlands share the village and town cost sharing methodology with the villages and the town. Yeah, that's it.
Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Thanks, Dave. We'll move to 4.34, Rural Fire Association per diems. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Reeve and Council. Mike from administration. Just going to pull up the proper page here. So back at the January 11th, 22 regular council meeting, there was some discussion regarding the attendance of councillors at Rural Fire Association meetings. Administration was in turn tasked with providing some information. So we've got your background information on number of meetings attended historically, as well as anticipated scheduled meetings moving forward. So we're presenting you with three options. Option one, that council accept the Rural Fire Association Council per diems report dated February 1st, 2022 as information. And then option two, two separate resolutions. One, that council amends the council committee list to include Rural Fire Association meetings. And then resolution two, that council authorize the attendance of councillors to Rural Fire Association meetings up to a maximum frequency of X amount per year. On the next page, you will find historically over 2020 and 2021, each division and how many meetings they attended. So Division 1, 0, Division 2, 1, Division 3 attended 0, Division 4 attended 1, Division 5 attended 1, Division 6 attended 1, and Division 7 attended 3. That was in 2020, and then 2021, Division 6 attended 1 and Division 7 attended 2. The total per diem paid over those 2 years of 2020 and 2021 was $1,875.20. Moving forward, these are the scheduled meetings. So the Rural Fire Associations, you've got Rosebud and Rocky Ford in Division 6. Rosebud is planning one annual general meeting, and Rocky Ford has their AGM as well as one throughout the year. In Division 7, Hazar has 4, so they have their AGM and then they like to meet quarterly. And Dallam just has their AGM. And then Standard in Division 1 has their AGM. Now that being said, it is possible if there's stuff going on. For example, when Rocky Ford was building their fire hall, they met more often because there was more business to be conducted. And then they could have an ad hoc meeting depending whether or not they feel the need to. So those are the Rural Fire Association meetings. As you know, whether, I'm not sure if maybe the new councillors know or not. So essentially, we have contracts and agreements with the rural fire associations to provide fire services within Wheatland County. So they're self-governed, sorry, and they have their own policy and procedure for those meetings. I don't attend those meetings. Personally, I think it's a good idea. I don't mind council being there to get a pulse on things and understand, and obviously show support from the council, from council and the county. Internally, operationally, the meetings that we have, so we've taken kind of a ground-up approach where we want to listen to the firefighters, the chiefs, the training officers, prepare our reports and bring them to council through myself, so that all the work is done and ready for you guys to make your decisions. So we meet with the training committee twice a year, and that's chaired by the deputy regional fire chief. The fire chiefs committee, we meet 4 times a year. Quarterly, and that's chaired by myself. I'll give you an example of what we talk about at those meetings. So it's operational. At the fire chiefs meetings, like last meeting, we discussed dispatch by apparatus procedures, right? Any issues, communication issues, radio issues. So that's kind of where we settle any operational issues. And then the capital committee, we have a meeting actually on Thursday, and on that agenda as we review our 20-year capital plan, I'm giving them a presentation on the fire funding, association funding policy, and then what has been approved for 2022 so that they can do their capital purchases. So that's our operational meetings, and then the Rural Fire Association meetings, which you guys are asked me to present. You'll have a total of 9 annually. If there's no questions, that concludes my report.
Any questions?
Just a comment. I suspect 2020 and 2021 there was less meetings because of COVID. Now, I had an opportunity to talk to Ben Armstrong, who's Division 7, as you know Ben, right? Mm-hmm. So I asked him about historically going to fire meetings as councillor, and his exact words were, there's a lot more value to going to the fire association meetings than there are seed cleaning plant meetings. But I haven't been to a seed cleaning plant meeting or a fire association meeting, so I can't tell. But I asked him how often the Hazar had their meetings, and he said every couple of months plus an annual meeting. Right. So that would be 6 to... I don't know if the annual meeting counts in the every couple of months, but there would be either 6 or 7 meetings, but you've got 4 in there? Yeah,
so I spoke with the association presidents and asked them their plan. Yes.
Yes, okay.
Yes. Randy and Mike, the chief, both. So Randy Kaiser, the president, and Mike's the fire chief there. Yeah, so I spoke with them, and that's what they passed on to me.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So I don't know where Ben is Ben also a member of the association? Do you know? Because I didn't ask him.
I'm not sure, to be honest with you. This is the information I got from the associations for 2022. Okay. It's possible in the past they met more often, but this is the schedule they provided me.
Yeah, and Dallum, let me rephrase this. According to Albert Jensen, okay, he's not the chief, is he?
Yes, he is. He's the fire chief, yeah.
All right, well, so according to Albert, Dallum has an annual meeting, and then there are other meetings they just call practices.
Yeah, so fire practice. So, not sure how they structure their association meetings. So there's rural fire association meetings where the business is done, and then there's fire association meetings, which that's for the firefighters. So every department has a fire association, and the firefighters get together potentially, if they're planning a community barbecue, fundraising, things like that. The Rural Fire Association specifically have agreements with us, and then the villages as well. So the 3 village departments, they have contracts with their villages to provide fire services as well. So there's a bit of a separation of the Rural Fire Association and then the actual Firefighters Association. So the Firefighters Association is something that's separate. It's not a governance. It's not that type of an association. It's more of a group of firefighters that get together and discuss. Basically, they get together and it's a club, sort of, in a sense. Yeah.
So that's the adrenaline junkies then?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That's what keeps them coming back.
Yeah.
Well, I think, and camaraderie too, and like you said, community service. Yeah. I know our fire departments do a lot of community service within this communities also, and I think they do take that opportunity to, like you said, plan events or public outreach, education, things like that, which are critical too. And the camaraderie is critical as well when you're working in situations like that and under that kind of pressure. So Deputy Reeve Clausen and then Councillor Lowerson.
So on page 126, there's this number of meetings and stuff, and I see Division 5, and I really had to think hard about this, why, because I don't have the Fire Association in my division. And I remember this was specific to a training thing that we went to Rosebud about.
The mediation.
The mediation.
Oh, see, I was feeling
it's not really,
terrible.
so this isn't even really accurate. This is a one-off thing. Like,
I do know what you're talking
Yeah,
about now.
so-
Yes.
my thing is, and I realize I don't have a fire association in my division, but if they invite you to something, that's fine. But after hearing how we were look at things and how it's really good now, it's working a lot better. So if they're instead of going there all the time, if they invite you, I think it'd be different. Does that make sense? That's where I'm coming from.
Kind of. Is it okay if I talk?
Of course.
So in talking to, and I mean, I can only go by what Ben's telling me, because I didn't belong to the fire associations before, but he's of the opinion, especially given the tension that there was when the previous things were not going wrong. He says it's very important for us to be there at the meetings, and that the fire associations want us there, at least. And I'm only speaking for Division 7, because we only have associations. You have a different issue in your division. I don't even know what happens in your division, but you might.
It don't bother me, so we have them right there.
Yeah, but so I think it's a very different thing. And Glenn probably, like Rosebud's an association, right?
Correct.
And Standard is.
Yep.
And I know for a fact, because I learned it when I was out campaigning, there's firefighters that are on both the Dallam Fire Association and the Rosebud one.
Yes.
And they're all
There's a
opposed
few.
to the racetrack too, but that's a separate issue. But anyway, Ben has said historically he's always been paid a per diem and mileage and stuff to go to fire association meetings. So my position is, for people that have fire associations, if you don't, it's not an issue for you. But for the rest of us, we should probably continue that, just to keep good relationship between the county and the fire associations. And I might even ask you questions from time to time.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Because I know that, like so these guys have heard it 1,000 times. Randy is also someone I played a lot of hockey with.
Yeah.
And we're pretty good friends. And he's still a little bit confused about the relationship between yourself and the fire association and stuff.
Okay.
So anything we can do together to smooth that over
Yes,
would
of
be
course.
super good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, that's all the questions I had.
Any other questions or discussion? I was going to apologize because at the last meeting I said I was not compensated for the only fire association meeting I recalled going to. Had gone through my notes, did not see compensation, and then I saw compensation. But I know what you're talking about now, and I'm glad, because I thought I had lost my mind. But yes, that was it wasn't a typical association meeting, but it was hosted by the associations. Just for transparency, it was a mediation meeting between council. We did have administration represented there, I think, prior to our permanent staff being hired. And there were representatives from our fire associations. It was during that very rocky time. And it was a good meeting. It was excellent. But you're right, not a typical association meeting. I do support council representation at the association meetings. I agree with Chief Borgon that there can be value in that liaison between council and the associations. These associations do incredible work, and the firefighters.
And if we don't support them,
Yeah.
guess what?
Absolutely. I do. The only thing I would, I guess, a caveat I would put on that is just like balancing, so that we're not we don't want to overextend. We have no jurisdiction. I see it more as a point of contact between. So I have no issue with the number of meetings that the chiefs or that the association presidents passed on. I think that's reasonable, I don't think it would be necessary to do monthly or that type of thing, but to have those touch points, I do support because of the invaluable work that happens. And if we can, anything that we can do to support that, but being mindful of our zero jurisdiction and all of that, so. I'm for sure, I fully support an annual attendance or twice a year. I'm open to I'm open obviously to whatever the will of council is. I'm easy.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing, if it's necessary to go to 4 meetings, or maybe 2 are good enough. I don't think we're going to be a real active role on the association, but I think yeah, to be there, like you said, to show support and that kind of thing is fine.
Well, and to build on that, I think too, if the associations know that their area councillor is always, I mean, that's what we clarified too through this whole process, is we're always accessible. You're accessible, we're accessible. Like, we want communications flowing, and if an issue does arise, the sooner that we can be made aware of it or start addressing it, the better. Because issues will arise. That happens inevitably with anything that we're addressing. So, yeah. I will just ask anybody who is phoned into the meeting if you can just mute if you're not actively speaking. Yes.
So I'll just share with you some text from Ben. This goes back to November 22nd, 2021. I get a text at 1937, which is 7:37. Are you coming to the fire meeting in Hazard at 7:30? So he's certainly, I mean, it certainly is his expectation, and I don't know what role he serves now, other than that. I'm assuming he's just a part of the board. But I believe that from what he told me, he attended every scheduled meeting. And that's where I would say, like, I would be comfortable with to keep the same kind of support that's happened, is that we go ahead with resolution 1, and if we do resolution 2, with just attend regularly scheduled meetings, so that it's not just, if they want to have a debrief, for example, that's something that a councillor, I would argue, should not go to, right? Mm-hmm. But that you just attend regularly scheduled fire department meetings, and then if they request one, well, that's a different story. Like, if they have a special meeting and they request that you come, I would say that would be within the purview of a councillor as well.
Council's wishes, whatever. You can put a motion on the floor.
Yeah, I'll move that council amend the council committee list to include Rural Fire Association meetings.
Questions or discussion? Any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
I will
Councillor
move
Lowerson?
that council authorize attendance of councillors to Rural Fire Association meetings, to all regularly scheduled meetings, and or at the request of the fire association.
Any questions or discussion?
I'd actually like to see a frequency amount on there, just because, being the history that we've been involved in, if I could see that if things got heated or something, you could tie somebody up without any, with a lot. So I'd like to see twice a year, to be honest.
Pretty sure that won't fly with the Hazard Association to do twice a year, but if they only meet, my understanding is they meet every other month, so we're talking a maximum of 6 meetings a year. Down only has an annual general meeting, and then they have the other ones they call practice meetings. So unless there was something that came up at a practice meeting that they had a question about, I wouldn't see me attending. And as a matter of fact, depending on what they might ask about the practice meeting, I might refer to, I have no expertise, talk to this guy.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Anything operations needs to go to administration for sure.
And that's why I said scheduled meetings, so that they just can't pull something out of the blue unless there's, if they have to call a special meeting, much like we called the special ASB meeting the other day, if there's an emergent issue, then I would think that would be something that would be allowable. And again, not being an expert on fire, if they said they were going to call a special meeting about something or other, I would look to you to say, what is this? And can I provide any value?
I have just some concerns about meeting every other month, a councillor being there every other month. The system is running so smoothly that I really, no offense to anybody, but if we can keep our fingers out of it, the more the better, unless they actually request you being there.
Well, I just read it off, Tom. I hadn't been a councillor a month, and Ben's going, where
Yeah,
are you?
I know, and I understand that. But I remember the first Fire Association meeting we had 4 years ago, I never imagined that we could get to this place with the associations. And I just don't want, I don't want to micromanage this. And I'm not accusing anybody of micromanaging it, but 6 meetings a year is just, I think is just, I sort of think it should be sort of like an alternate thing that you want, if you're on that alternate deal, you can go 2 or 3 meetings a year and that's sort of it, sort of pick and choose. But that's me. And I do not have any associations in mind, so I come from that. I also come from that deal, so I'm willing to be corrected on this. Just that I just know what it was and what it is, and I'm really, really happy on what it is.
I guess I'm curious if all the other rural departments are only meeting once or twice a year. Do you know why it is that Hazard chooses to meet so much more frequently?
I do not know.
Chief?
Sending benefits.
Through the reef. I don't know why. I suppose it would be up to the president to set those parameters where it is self-governing. Likely, different needs from different associations. Perhaps they just appreciate meeting more often. I really don't have an answer to it, but.
And just for clarity too, it's not necessarily the frequency of department meetings, but just the association. So the association is more the governance, like oversight, if I understand correctly.
That's correct.
So they do a lot of the financial work, the budgeting, fundraising, things like that, as well as support for the actual fire department and the firefighters, those types of things. The AGM that we were, I don't have a lot of experience with the associations firsthand, but what I have seen is like looking at sort of annual budgets, looking at financials, things like that, oversight, as well as some community engagement, those types of things. I see both sides of this. Like I see the value in being there, and I also see that we want to be cautious because things are being run incredibly well right now. We have incredible administration that have brought us so far. I agree with you, Tom. I did not think we would get to where we are now and have the fire service that we have now, and we have. But also nothing precludes us from being involved in community organizations like a fire association too, outside of our council role. So there's the council sort of governance piece, and then there's also, like I do attend community meetings at times, and I recognize that fire associations are different because they are facilitating and contributing to an essential service in our county. But we also can be involved. We had a former councillor who was involved with the fire association and fire department, just like as part of their community, like as a human, as a resident. That's not the right word, but you know what I mean. Like, that's good. So like, it wouldn't necessarily prevent you from going every time. It's just when are you there, like officially on behalf of council? Because I think that's what we're talking about when we're actually representing council and what our role is.
And Ben said, I talked to Ben on Sunday about it, and he said he went to every meeting, charged per diem for every meeting. Is there a way to validate that?
Well, it says it right here.
Yeah, so all the paid attendance would be in the report. It's actually right on the screen right now. So it looks like it was, I can't remember, but
Page 134.
5 meetings in 2020 and 21. Could have been reduced because of COVID. But
definitely.
That's just kind of the facts. We went right from the timesheets to get those numbers.
Yeah.
Just a comment. Over the years, I've only gone when I've been asked to go. When they were building the fire hall, it was more than. They did a new fire truck, it was more than. Rosebud, they just have a meeting at their fire practice. They mix them both together. Only, I think, been there once. So I make myself available when I'm wanted. Otherwise, I let them do what they do best. So putting a limit on it, I'm not in this game for how many meetings I could go to. I'm there to be of service. So I only go when I'm asked.
I would hate for Hazard to think that Rick isn't being responsive
Yeah.
Or
as Ben was.
responsible to
That's
the
my
fire.
problem.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't really need to go to fire association meetings, but I also do not want them to feel like,
Right.
well, Ben did all this and now it's the new council and we're being abandoned,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, Albert was pretty clear about Dallum, because that's the only two that are in my division. He said, we have one annual general meeting. He said, we might want you to come to one of our practice meetings if we have an issue. If we don't, I mean, Albert's got my number, and trust me, he knows how to use it. So, I mean, I'm not quite as worried about them. Dallum's biggest concern is they don't want to get taken over. That's still a concern they have, and the more we can do to assure them that that's not going to happen, I think the better we are. And like I say, Randy, who's the president of Hazars, has some concerns. They're still not completely happy. They're not sure the direction, so the more stability that we can provide them, the better. So I would say Ben will eventually answer my text, and I'll find out how often he went. But as long, I mean, I'm not going to go any more than he did, and if I can go less than he did, and the association's happy, I'm cool with that. It's a 30-mile drive to Hazar for me. I don't need this.
So I wonder if we considered, so I'm hearing some consensus, I'm hearing solid consensus that we want representation, that we want to show support, and that we want to be that liaison, that type of thing. We could look at approving 1 or 2 meetings for now. You could go back to Hazar and say this is nothing about a lack of support or anything like that. What needs to be very clear is that the direction that I have heard from our council, from a governance perspective, and from our administration, is that the last thing we want to do, we do not ever want to take over an association. In fact, I hear the opposite. We want to do everything that we can to support and facilitate the continuing service of those associations and our firefighters. And I think we're very close there. If there is more work that needs to be done in Hazar, I think that could be done perhaps through a mutual meeting with yourself and administration, see what the issues are. You can always bring those back to council if there are significant, for example, governance issues. If there's an oversight that we've made regarding governance, then we can address that. And if that takes some more time to work through that, we can definitely consider that. But this is more of like a high level kind of ongoing direction. So we could deal with that exception outside of a policy, because I see this could live on forever, that every area councillor that has fire associations, which is traditionally on the eastern side of the county, that in perpetuity we're showing that commitment to attend at the very least an AGM, maybe twice a year. That gives, a little more frequent touch points, knowing full well that we encourage our association presidents to reach out to us at any time if an issue arises.
Okay, Ben just got back to me.
Yeah.
Okay, Ben said, well, for me, Dallum invited me to 2 per year as they did not care for county oversight. I tried to always make their annual
I'm just going to pause just because I don't know all what will be, I don't know if you need to share the whole,
No, so
I just don't know for sure if Ben knows you're reading it in public council is all I'm saying.
Yeah. And he attended all meetings in Hazar. So
Yeah.
couple in Dallum and all meetings in Hazar, which is kind of what I was suggesting.
I wasn't expecting anything horrendous. If I was texting you, I might not know what was being.
No, I told him
Read out
exactly what I was. He knows,
there you go.
He knows
Perfect.
why I'm asking this.
Okay,
I've known Ben for a long, long time.
Yep, no, that's perfect. Deputy CAO Boscario.
Perfect. I just wanted to, through the Reeve, just to circle back a couple of things. So obviously there's a motion, you move that one, and then there's one on the floor. Just a couple notes. I think, should this be the will of council in terms of moving forward to attend fire association meetings, from administration, that's fine. I see this organically then growing into, in my mind, from an administrative perspective, perhaps a policy being grown out of this with respect to council's relationship with administration. I was just chatting with GM Buteau, and this is where our minds are going here administratively, because of course, to Reeve Link's point, there is the whole operational divide being there as a sounding board and relationship. So I would see that moving forward. We don't need any resolution. I just wanted to think full disclosure of where administration's minds are going. And then secondly, CAO Henderson did make a point, of course, to ensure that With respect to voting up to X, it's important to note, obviously, that Hazar and Dallin, with respect to your representation, that you can attend to both as well. So just wanted to make those notes. But in terms of an administrative perspective, certainly organically, I see a policy coming out of this to have that relationship divide if we're going to continue with attending association meetings. I think that would be a smart move as well. But we can see where this goes.
And I think something like that would be beneficial both for us as councillors and for the associations, just so that we're very clear on what the roles are, why we're in attendance. We're there at their privilege, essentially as guests, because we have no oversight, no governance role, but that we are there out of appreciation and really at their will. I think I'm leaning more towards maybe up to 2 a year, with full well you can always come back and say, this is what I've heard from Hazar, like directly from the president, for example, of the association, that this is critical for ongoing continuity with the association. And that's only, I'm just disclosing fully personal where I'm leaning towards, given all of the information.
And just from, even last year there was 5 for Division 7 alone. If you look at that chart that's on page 126.
That's the 2 years together. So 3 in 2020, and that would be Dallam and Hazar.
Never mind, sorry.
2 in 2021, and that would be Dallam and Hazar. But as CAO Henderson stated, definitely could be less because of COVID. I know a lot of meetings did get delayed. Even Dallam, I know their AGM at one point had been delayed because of restrictions, and we held it in person, but they had delayed that, so.
Well, and just from what Ben said and you're welcome to come and look at it if you want. He attended all the meetings.
Yeah. No, and I understand that, but we have had, historically, was a much different situation than where we are now in terms of our team at Wheatland, in terms of how they work with the associations and the fire chiefs. Like, I think we have come a long ways in terms of our entire fire service. So I'm not doubting at all what happened historically.
And I'm not sure and I understand that what they've done has changed a lot, but the Hazar and Dallam associations have not fundamentally changed.
No, but I think
they're still autonomous.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You're 100% right.
We depend on them as more so than they depend on us. So I'm not quite seeing your argument there.
If you can just help understand the role that Councillor...
Just a comment.
Yeah, of course, Councillor Kester.
Through the years and the ups and downs of the fire and the history, the only thing that's remained constant is the association meetings. They've always been, and they've never had a problem with the association meetings. I don't go to that many. However, if that's what the other associations, some associations more or less, whatever they discuss there, they discuss. It's always been. It's never been a bone. So there was other things at play. It wasn't the associations.
Yeah. That's my understanding too, Glenn.
Yeah.
Council could decide what they want, and I'll take it to the associations, and you can deal with.
Yeah,
you
of
can
course.
deal with Albert and Randy.
Yeah, no, and this isn't an antagonistic thing or anything like that. It's just, so my question was just what the role as a councillor would be in, say, bi-monthly meetings or quarterly meetings with the association. Just help me understand, like, the business that they're conducting, or...
Do you want me to call Ben?
No, I just thought if you were aware of what your role might be going forward.
Well, the first one I didn't know about, and then after I found out that this hasn't been decided anyway, so I'm not going to one until we decide. So I haven't been to one, so I can't tell you.
Okay, that's fair.
But I'm sure Ben can tell you.
Yeah, and Ben would share, I'm trying to think, he would bring reports back at times on meetings that he attended. Yeah. So we have a motion on the floor, and it was that council authorize the attendance of councillors to Rural Fire Association meetings, all regularly scheduled, and as they're called by the president.
Yeah, if the
I think,
president's request.
did I? Is that accurate? At the president's request. Okay.
So we don't want to put any limit on it? I mean,
Well, the limit is it has to be scheduled or by request, right? It
that could
doesn't
be
mean
any, though. That could be
Just say,
one a
oh, I
month.
went to a meeting because I stopped at the fire hall.
No, but they could ask, they could request meetings like every, I don't know. Like, I don't know.
And when I
It just-
say that, I think more of and if we don't like that part about special meetings, then we can do those as one-offs. I was just more thinking of, the other day, at very short notice, I had to call a special ASB meeting. There could be an emergent issue, and I doubt there will be, but there could be an emergent issue. Do we want to just grant that ability now, or do we have to do it, and then ask for permission, which in case if there's not another council meeting in between that meeting, then there won't be time to do that.
Chief Brooklyn.
Yeah, through the Reeve, just to clarify, I think what we're talking about is the Rural Fire Association meetings, not training meetings, not fire department meetings, formal rural fire association meetings where there's actual business conducted. So just, of course, the department meets weekly at times. That's not what's in discussion here. It's just the Rural Fire Association meetings, chaired by the president.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? I am going to say I'm opposed. We'll do a roll call vote. Reeve Link is opposed. Deputy Reeve Clausen.
In favor as long as we review it in a year, just to see how it works out.
That's actually a good idea.
Yeah.
Councillor Laprise.
In favor with a review.
Councillor Bigger.
In favor?
Councillor Eichert.
In favor with the review.
I wonder if we should amend the motion.
Yeah,
I don't think we can
should have-
qualify
I was
a
just going to
vote.
say that we need
We shouldn't be
to amend the
qualifying a
motion
vote.
to do that. But I would consider that which is what I was going to say. I would consider that a friendly amendment.
Okay, so we will stop voting. We will amend the motion to ratify attendance of the councillor to Rural Fire Association meetings that are regularly scheduled or at the call of the president, and we will review. Would we consider reviewing, say, in October at our organizational meeting, and then it's clean and we can, it's a natural time to like we'll be looking at committees again. And then that gives you some time to like work through the issues that are raising and see where we're at with that. My goal would be, because they are autonomous, like for us not to be a liaison and to support, but not to be hands-on in any way, and to keep the operational, like to respect the autonomy of the organization and to keep our hands out of operations. That's my goal. Yes.
Which we would be, because we would not have a vote. We're not part of the association. We're just
Of course.
represent the county, and if there's questions, to try and answer them, and if we can't answer them, we bring them back here.
And that's why I raised like what your role would be at the meeting, because if we're simply there like observing or liaisoning information, that might be able to be done like on a semi-annual basis or that type of thing. Knowing that people reach out to us with questions every single day. So that's always open. Okay, so we're considering a different motion, which I now feel comfortable supporting fully. Is anybody opposed to the motion that is now on the floor?
Let's just get the motion reread so everybody's clear, especially for Glenn on the phone.
Sure.
I heard it.
So I think it was the original motion to ratify, authorize the attendance of councillors to Rural Fire Association meetings, regularly scheduled Rural Fire Association meetings or meetings at the call of the president, with this resolution being reconsidered at our organizational meeting in October of 2022. So
Reviewed was the word we used, or was the word Scott used?
what word did I use? Sorry.
You used reconsidered.
Oh, review is fine. Review's great. More accurate. So that will give us about 9 months of sort of time frame. You can let us know what the issues are with Hazar.
Yeah.
We can see how best to address those. We can go from there. Is anybody opposed? Motion is carried. Excellent. Thank you, everybody.
Good discussion.
Yeah, it was good discussion. It is really, really important, and we are incredibly grateful to the associations and all of our firefighters. And I was not opposed because I didn't want to facilitate that support. I just want to be mindful of our role is my only concern. Councillor Lowerson.
Yeah, well, and just to let you know how important this is, I have on my own dime spent two-hour sessions with Albert at the Dallam Fire Hall discussing some of these things. This is really important to them.
Absolutely. No, and we're very grateful to Albert and to all of our firefighters unequivocally. We'll move to 4.41, Transportation and Agriculture Report.
Good morning, Council. Brad Bullock presenting. So on page 136 of the agenda package, we start the report. So first up is the capital projects list, so some of the highlights. And then, of course, towards the end of the report are the tables with the more detailed information for more of the projects. I'll point out that on those lists, they now have all of the 2022 capital projects listed. And as we move along, we'll update the estimated start and completion dates for those projects. And as they get completed, we'll note those as being completed as well. So an update on the Rosebud Lagoon. So the final invoices for that project have been received, and we will be submitted for final grant submissions in February once the release of the holdback is complete. The West Side Servicing Master Plan has begun with our engineering consultants, so they're putting together a plan and a schedule for completing that work, as well as a recommended scope of work for the county for the different areas to investigate for that and work with administration on. So that has been kicked off. Moving on to the next page under operations. So our new operator has obtained his level 1 certificate now for the utilities, so that's great. And the water and wastewater bylaw has been completed and approved by council, as you all know. For the facilities, you can see they're moving along with the upgrades to the security systems, and so you can see the picture there is the Carlton Fire Hall, the admin building security upgrade, and the Carlton Fire Hall and Public Works are complete. Under the hamlets, so this is something that was discussed back in the fall, but got pushed to the spring. So in Rosebud, there are some disease poplar trees in that hamlet that the arborist has recommended need to be cut down, and so that removal work is planned for to start at the end of February, and of course those trees will get replaced as soon as we can as well this year. Some statistics just presented from our waste transfer. So the sites took in a combined 10,586 tires for recycling around the county. And as well, one other interesting note is the effluent that gets trucked from Murfield to Carsland totaled just over 28 million liters in 2021, so a little over 1,000 loads actually. So this sounds big when you say liters, but really 2,800 cubic meters, yeah. On the next page, a summary of the land sales for Murfield, and so you can get to see that and what's been happening with that recently, as well as the total sales so far and the total number of lots still available, both for single-family unit lots and for duplex lots. And lastly, agriculture and environment. So a summary of items related to ASB and some of the upcoming events coming for that area as well. And that concludes my report. I'm here for any questions.
Any questions for transportation?
Yeah, Brad?
Yes.
Yeah, Brad, Rosebud and the trees. I've heard maybe that there was some talks about a tree replacement program with the ratepayers in Rosebud. Is that correct? Or?
Yes.
Or is it something they're...
I can take this one. So, Councillor Kester,
Okay.
through the Reeve, we'll reach out to you about this one. So we just did a similar one with Councillor Laprise and Clooney, but we'll definitely be in communication with you and the residents prior to undertaking any action or removal of any tree out in Rosebud.
Yeah, well, we've got less than 28 days left. I'm thinking they're going to like to know, a little bit sooner than later. Yeah, please, as soon as we can.
Yep, for sure.
Thanks, Brian.
Any other questions under transportation and agriculture?
Just when you look at the amount of liters from Murfield to Carsland, is it still appropriate to have our staff doing this, or is it concerns that we need to go look at a private contractor or anything? Or?
Bryce Mackin's on the line. He might be best suited to answer that question. Bryce. At least I thought he was on the line, but we can take that.
Hello? Yeah,
Oh,
no, Bryce here.
Yeah.
Can everybody hear me?
Hi, Bryce. We can hear you now. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, there's no need to look at any other additional service for this. The administration and the Hamlet crew are taking care of the in-house hauling of this. We have a truck and 2 trailers dedicated to it, and we have the ability to add a driver and a truck to the second trailer if we get behind. Normally we operate 1 truck most of the year, and every once in a while we put 2 trucks on for a day or 2 just to catch up if need be. No risk right now of additional services needed. And I will note that it has been a cost savings from the the previous contractor that has been doing it, as presented back when we recommended this program. Thank you.
Are we mostly just Monday to Friday, or are we doing weekends as well?
Yeah, I believe it's
Monday to Friday.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's fine. And the
Right
reservoir
here,
does.
it's Monday to Friday.
Sorry. Go ahead, Bryce.
Sorry, Brad. It's tough to know if you were going to go or not. Through the chair, we do operate Monday to Friday on a regular basis. We may add a shift if there's a long weekend or over a period of a holiday where we need to go in there. But normal operations are Monday to Friday, with very rarely do we stray from that.
Just a note, through my work, I deal with the contract operators for Rocky View County that look after that site, and they were talking about there's an alarm level that gets too high, and it actually notifies their contract operators if it gets too high. And I don't know if it's ever come back through. I said I'd mention it to staff because they have they're contracted to operate the site in Delroy. That's the name, and it's down in our county. So so when the alarm goes off, they have to respond, and they have no way of knowing anything about it. So I don't know if there's a way we can get the alarm to ourselves or something, because then they have to turn and phone and wake somebody up in the middle of the night on our side. So I don't know if you've even heard about this before.
This is new to me.
Bryce again, through the chair.
Yes, please go ahead, Bryce. Thank you.
Through the chair, we are aware of the alarms, and our Hamlet foreman is in contact with members at Rocky View County that oversee the Dalroy lift station, or oversee the operation of the Dalroy lift station, I should say. But I will pass along that message and ensure that the communications are clear and there's a clear procedure around that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for transportation and agriculture?
I'll move that council accepts the General Manager of Transportation and Agriculture January 2022 report as information.
Thank you. Councillor Laprise has moved. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. I wanted to thank you. I think the way the report's laid out and being able to follow those capital projects is going to be really helpful going forward. You have a lot of projects that you're overseeing, and obviously a substantive amount of, especially the work that affects the day-to-day sort of lives of our ratepayers falls within this, and I really appreciate being able to track that as we go forward. And yeah, just the fulsomeness. All of our reporting has been incredible. I think that it's comprehensive. It's easy for us to understand, easy for me to sort of track what's happening within the county, and just from that oversight perspective, just to see what's happening. So thank you to CAO Henderson and to the entire senior leadership team. I think our reporting is phenomenal. And if there are any gaps in information, please don't hesitate to reach out to CAO Henderson, and we can make sure that, that's included going forward. But
yes, and
it's incredible.
Any improvements that council would like to see in the reports, also let us know, because we'll definitely make those improvements and try to improve on our reports too. Thanks.
I really appreciate, questions have arose, and they're very responsive. I think we're seeing really good information, so thank you. We will move to 4.42, Agriculture and Environment Policy Amendment.
Good afternoon, Council again. Brad Bullock reporting. So all of the Agricultural Service Board policies were reviewed at the January 12th, 2022 Agriculture Service Board meeting, with the board recommending to council that it accept the amendments as presented. The only amendment was to policy 3.3.4 to extend the deadline for applications for haying of municipal right-of-ways from May 31st to June 30th. And that's my report.
Council's wishes.
I'll just, if you don't mind, Brad, I'll just add a little background to this, because Russ and I discussed this quite a bit. Part of the reasoning to move that forward is to allow ranchers, farmers to have a better judge on what their potential hay crop would be, so that they could have the opportunity to mow the ditches. The reason we cut it off at June 30th is we still need to plan on how we're going to mow the ditches that don't get cut, but it gives the ratepayers a little more leeway as to when they want to cut their things. So I think this is a really good idea.
Absolutely. Yeah, and good to raise that. It was raised at ASB, but good to clarify that here too for our ratepayers. So thank you. Council's wishes. Yes.
I will move that just a minute. I should have been closer on this. I would move that council approves the amendment to the Agriculture and Environment Policy 3.3.4, haying of municipal right-of-ways as presented.
Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. And yeah, excellent that we can be nimble and responsive, like you said. So thank you for bringing that forward. We'll move to the addition 4.43. It was a capital adjustment under the Transportation and Agriculture budget.
Thank you. This is something that came up very recently. We do have an approved capital project to purchase a new truck for our ASB team. And the quotes that we recently got back, the lowest quote was higher than our original budget. And so the request is for council to approve a budget increase from the original $50,000 budget to $58,000 to manage that purchase. We received the bids closed on last Friday. They were opened yesterday, and which time the council received a note from the lowest bidder on this that the pricing after today would go to 2023 pricing, and so if we wanted to take advantage of the 2022 pricing, we would need to make that purchase today. So it's timely that we had our council meeting today. So
just looking for an amendment to the capital budget for the additional $8,000 for that purchase. I'm hearing this more and more just in terms of supply chain and inflation and costs and that type of thing. So
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Kester has moved. Any questions or discussion?
So are we seeing this in any other purchases so far, or do we have other trucks that we don't have the right budgeted amount, or I don't know?
So any amendments that are required, anything over the budget, we'll have to bring back to council for sure for authorization. And so I think I think we're okay so far. This is the only one I've heard about, and hopefully it's the only one. If not, we'll bring them back to council anyways. So I hope it is. I hope that's the only one that's the only project that's over budget for the whole year, but we'll find out as we get there.
Yeah.
We do appreciate you bringing this forward, and yeah, I think we are going to anticipate that at times we're going to experience this, and we'll just deal with it as it comes. And excellent. Any further discussion or questions? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. Move to 5.1, correspondence. 2 letters from Crow's Nest Pass, no action required. AHS Emergency Medical Services. Councillor Kester referred to this during his report, the update that the Coreflex shifting will be eliminated and additional funding will be being provided for that. Letter from RCMP following up to our conference appointment with K Division, indicating that they will be gathering some metrics around responsiveness.
I would just ask a question. If this is going to take more than 5 minutes, can we take a short recess?
I bet we can do it in 5, and then we can take a break when we move to close, in between close, because there will be a natural.
Yep.
If we can hold on for, it will probably be 5, less than 5.
If this was going to take a half hour, I was going to say let's take a break.
Should be quick, we'll see. If it gets too long, you can call for a comfort break. Wheatland Housing Management Board correspondence, that was regarding the Housing 101. It was brought to my attention that we did not ratify attendance if officials do want to attend that, so we could do that quickly, shortly. And the letter from Carsland. So the only ones that I saw that really required action is if we do want to ratify attendance at the orientation for councillors, Housing 101. We could start there if somebody wants to put a motion on.
I'll move to ratify attendance at the Wheatland Housing Management Board Housing 101 for municipal elected officials.
Any questions?
Want to attend?
Perfect. Sorry, what was the end? Sorry.
For councillors who want to attend.
Perfect. That's wonderful. And I think it will just be a half day. I think it's a relatively short.
It's an hour and a half.
Yeah, perfect. Any questions or discussion? Any councillor opposed? Motion is carried.
Thanks, Shannon, because I already registered. I didn't know we needed to ratify it.
Well, you can always register.
We could always go.
Yeah.
The council might not pay you, but you could always go. Yeah. Yeah. You can go to whatever you want.
Exactly. Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely. And I did just want to highlight the note. I did appreciate the letter from Carsland. It was really nice to see all of the work that they were able to do with some of the funding support that program provided. So
awesome.
it really shows the impact on that hamlet and on the community.
They're very appreciative.
Yeah, that's excellent. Please thank them for sending the correspondence.
Definitely.
Any questions on the correspondence? Motion to accept for information.
I'll move we accept this as information.
Okay. Any questions or discussion? Is any councillor opposed? Motion is carried. We will... CAO Henderson, what's the best process if we're going to break, but we would also like to move into closed session when we come out of the break? Can I move into closed session now and then recess for 5?
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
It should be fine. I think the intention's there. Then we'll just ensure that everyone's on the line at that point.
Okay. So I will move us into closed session. Is anybody opposed? Motion is carried. And we will recess for 5. We'll reconvene at 2:55. I'm just doing it that way because it's cumbersome